Hello, everybody, and welcome to the halfway recap show of the 2020 APHP season. I'm Ross Berge, and we have James, the thrusting Moynihan, on with us here. Let's get right into it, Jimbo. Let's start off with, well, first off, how are you doing through the pandemic? How's life treating you?
It's one day at a time, like the rest of the country. God bless our soldiers here on Veterans Day, and this is a Veterans Day special. This is a special for Veterans
Day. Let's get that to you
guys. I'll pour one out for the vets. I'm drinking. I mentioned to Ross earlier, but I would like to announce to the group I'm drinking the brown stuff these days to try and cut back on the calories. So I don't think that's how it works, but
what kind is that one?
This is a bullet, a light bullet whiskey.
Nice. Anything in it? No.
Ice cubes.
Ice cubes. Got it.
Yeah. Got it. They melted.
Good. It's a great call. Keep it cold. All right, let's get into the standings here. I think the story of the year so far is Albert being 7-2. Started out 2-2, has a 5-game winning streak. Your thoughts, Jimbo?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no denying that his team's okay, but we got to call a spade a spade. They have faced what is one of the bottom points against at 870.
Yeah.
He has 950 points for. He's 3-1 in games that he scores less than 105 points. So, yes, he's done a tremendous amount of research on his teams and his players. And obviously that's the key for him going into the draft. But I'm expecting the roller coaster ride to end a little bit. He faces JK this week. I think that kind of evens things out a little bit for Al. And it's been a good run. I don't see this lasting for the second half of the season.
Yeah, he's seventh. I agree. He's 7th in scoring. Edwards Hilaire is getting less snaps than he was before. He has Tevin Coleman in there right now, who's doubtful this week. Kenny Galladay injured, so I think the arrow is pointing down a little bit for Albert now. But obviously 7-2, middle of the pack for scoring, so he might be able to recover. But I agree. I think JK is probably the strongest team in our division, and I think your team is the strongest in your division. But Rag is obviously pretty close to you. What are your thoughts on Rag's team?
Look, Rag has it's a very interesting situation, a little bit of an opposite from really what he faced last year. Last year, throughout the entire season, Rag's points against, he faced 1,529.4 points for the whole season. This year, we're through 9 weeks, and Rag has faced over 1,000 points already. So, I mean, it talks about the asterisks that obviously he has on his championship from last year, but it also talks about he is facing a tremendous amount of potent offenses in his own schedule this season.
Well, as the second place finisher last year, if there's ever an overturn of his championship last year, I think it'll go to me. So.
I'm confident that you would accept that. Yes.
All right. Anything else on the standings before we move on?
I mean, I think that there's a lot of close matches. What do you think is the winning total wins? Like, how many total wins do you think the champ needs to get?
I think it seems like 11 or 12 is like the average, and I think the highest is usually like 13. I know there's been a couple 15s, but I think the lowest we've ever had was 11. So I think 12 is kind of a good solid number. If you get 12 wins, you got a good shot.
Yeah, I've always kind of set my team up to be right around the 12 win mark, plus or minus a couple there. And I do feel like this year 12 wins probably gets you the championship. For Al, that would mean going 5-3 the rest of the way, which is doable for him.
Yeah.
He's got a 7-2 record. He's in good shape here, so definitely doable. And he doesn't have the hardest schedule moving forward. I think that's another thing that you want to keep an eye on with the way that our divisions are set up. Al's schedule moving forward is probably one of the easier ones of the group, as he faces JK this week, which is going to be tough. but then he gets the Moose Knuckles, who are 3-6, the Woos, who are 3-6. He faces the Hawaiians, which will be a tough one. Then he faces your Bergilicious at again under 500. Gets WrestleMania, Masturbation 3-6, and ends with the Rat Tails. But anything can happen in Week 17. So from a schedule standpoint, he really only faces a couple of teams that provide a real substantial challenge to him.
Yeah, and I think being in our division helps out a little bit. I mean, I know that they're close, but I think
they're not that close.
Hard times is perennially, it always, it's like West Coast, East Coast in the NBA. You know, it's hard times is the West Coast. You guys always have it slightly more dialed in.
Let's talk a little bit about those challenges, because one team that I feel like has had a tough run is the Milk Cats.
Yeah.
You know, the Milk Cats have lost games or battled games. Like last week, he faces the Flying Hawaiians and scores 145. What an up and down season he's had. He's lost games with 111, 109. He's also scored 59. So, you know, what's your take on the Milk Cats?
I think he is a great team. It looks like he's fifth in scoring, but just has had a tough schedule. I mean, he's had a tough schedule, but still put up huge points against you, and then against Rag last week. I think it was like 145, 135. So tough loss for Rag, but I think Grimm's team is solid, and I think he'll be fighting for the money, like probably second place money, but fighting for the money at the end.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to look at for him, because he beats Rag. I didn't deserve to win that week, but then loses to Al when Al only scores 104 points that week. So it's one of those. He's been really all over the place. He's ranged from 145 to 59.4. So you don't know what you're going to get with the Milk Cats. It's a
little volatile. His lineup's always a little volatile.
Much like Grimm. You know, he's a volatile guy. You know, that's the thing.
That's some parallels. All right. Let's move on to some of the transactions this year. So I think honestly one of the best free agent pickups was before week 1. I was struggling to figure out the Jacksonville backfield. Drafted some guy that I had never heard of in like the 12th round. He goes on COVID and apparently never played football again for some odd reason. Then there was another guy that was supposed to maybe get some snaps, but it was Robinson, who you picked up for like $8, I think is the free agent pickup of the year.
Yeah, definitely no question there. I mean, he's been a stud for Jacksonville, for a Jacksonville team that continues to score points even without the Mustache Mania running the point over there for quarterback. He's been their go-to guy. And that, along with Antonio Gibson, did allow me to orchestrate a trade with the Diaper Dandy.
Another one of the biggest transactions of the year.
Yeah, exactly. And I know we'll get back to kind of the waiver wire, but I think that was a big thing where did I win the trade? I think that most would say, yeah, I did. But I do think that from the Diaper Dandy standpoint, he gets a couple of great keeper options, right? So
and more running backs.
Yeah. You always want to pile on the running backs, as everybody has seen this season with all the injuries that everybody's facing. And for Andy, he now gets Robinson and Gibson, both great keeper options. That, you know, maybe he makes a run at the end of the year here. Worst case scenario, he's got some options for next season.
Andy's team, Andy still has a great team even after some of those questionable trades. His team still looks pretty great on paper. So I think he'll still be, you know, contending. I think what's crazy about these standings is it seems like every team is close this year. Normally there's like one or two that have like one win and it's just like, you know, a no-brainer win. But it seems like every team this year is going to at least compete. So that's kind of crazy. What are to go back to transactions? What are some of the big other free agent pickups this year? I know there's been a ton of money spent on players that haven't panned out, like Benny Snell and.
Yeah, I mean, you made a great point before we came on air live. You had said that pretty much all of the big money purchases have not actually panned out. You look at Malcolm Brown, you look at Benny Snell. There's a ton of guys who we've spent a lot of money on, or guys who spent
Russell
a lot of
Gage was one.
Russell Gage. Yep, exactly. Obviously, Jed needed Mike Davis to a degree that nobody else really did, and so he panned out for that time period. But there's been a lot of guys that we go all in on, and it hasn't ended up working out. So that's been a really interesting thing to see how everybody's spending that money and kind of where everybody is at this stage of the game.
Well, it seems like in normal years, there's always like one or two at the beginning that end up being like a huge difference maker for the rest of the season. But for whatever reason, every single big free agent this year just hasn't panned out.
And we're into week 10 here, but we got some teams, including yourself, that are really pretty low on cash. So the Dandies are down to $45. Bergilicious, you're at 79. Snoots is at 68. A lot of guys in the 100, mid 200s. I think the most right now is Masturbation, and the Milk Cats. Well, maybe not the Milk. Yeah, Milk Cats are at over 300, but everybody else is really below 300. They've cut into at least half their budget as we're halfway through. What I think that makes it even more interesting is as you get into week 16 and 17, and some of these teams that end up sitting their starters for playoffs or injury reasons and things like that. You just don't have the resources necessarily to buy backups, but hopefully at that point some guys don't give a shit. It's hopefully at that point you've solidified where you are.
Right. How do you feel about getting into this week's scoreboard?
Yeah, I'm definitely down.
We didn't prepare for this.
We did not. One quick thing that I would like to make note of is the dramatic downfall of the Washington Woo-Woos.
Oh, yes.
I mean, just a tragic situation. I think that all of us collectively were saying, look, if I'm not going to win, I'd like to see the Woo-Woos remain in contention. And unfortunately, a 5-game losing streak where the team just appears to be
4, it looks like.
4 games. Okay. It'll probably be 5 this week. The team just seems to be just nosediving.
Yeah. We've seen a free fall from John before.
In not only in fantasy football, I mean, in a lot of different ways. I've seen him at the casino. So things happen. It's you've got to assume that
he did have his money stolen that one time at the casino. That wasn't his fault.
That is true. That but he's had some good nights in the casino too. So yeah, we got to see where this could kick up right.
Where it'll end up. Yeah, he might end up at the craps table at 3:00 in the morning making thousands of dollars.
I wouldn't put anything past it. Let's make a run through. Give me the game.
All right, yeah. So we didn't look at this, but I think the matchup of the week, at least from a most win perspective, is Bad Blue Boys versus the Carolina Catholes. It's probably going to come down to these two teams in the happy endings division. So probably the biggest matchup of the week. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, this is a big one. Very interesting that JK changed his name. Didn't even make a reference to it in the actual.
On the radar there.
He didn't even put it on anybody's radar. Really, kind of an interesting move on his part. But what I would say is Al's facing a couple of different buys. He's in tough shape with a couple of his players. So I do think the Carolina Catholes, they have outscored Al's team historically pretty regularly. You never know what you're going to get with Russell Wilson. So that's a big one, but Al's got Coleman, Tevin Coleman coming back, and
Galloway probably both out. Yeah.
Right. So, and Alan Lazard coming off IR theoretically. So a lot of questions still on Al's team, whereas JK feels pretty confident that he's going to get to that 110 number.
They let me know that he's going to be sitting his second round draft pick this week, DJ Moore. So he's probably due for a blow up, just like Joe Mixon did earlier this year when JK benched him. So
yeah, very interesting.
All right, and then the other big matchup here is Fredericksburg Flying Macackies versus the Fighting Frog Swamps. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the McKaycocks, Jed's been at the ballot polls in Fredericksburg for weeks here, counting hanging chads left and right. I think this is going to come down to not only the quarterback position, but also that RB1 spot. Both of them with kind of interesting RB1s with Mike Davis and Nick Chubb coming off of IR. But Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen have been studs. I think this is going to be a close one. Jed has done a great job of, he's hanging in there at 6-3 without Christian McCaffrey. He comes back without McCaffrey again. Great. I mean, huge that he won the Mike Davis bid, because without that, I mean, I think he's a 2-7 team.
Right. And Brennan's team, he's got some interesting. So he's got Nick Chubb in his lineup, who might play. Philip Lindsay, not a great RB1 spot there, and then Jacoby Myers, who he just picked up. So I think Brennan's done well so far, but his team's starting to look a little. I thought the AJ Brown trade was questionable. He got back Amari Cooper, who's in my opinion not even in the same league now that Dak Prescott is not playing. So I don't know. Brennan's team's starting to slip for me a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. This was it might have supposed to have been off the record, but I did have a conversation today with Brendan. I was inquiring about maybe his insight into his own team, the Miami Dolphins, for my own daily fantasy reasons, and he didn't even know that Preston Wilson was injured and on IR. So it just shows me that COVID is impacting doctors in a way that we may not even necessarily understand. His focus on fantasy football may not be to the level and the degree that it tends to be.
He's spending more time with his baby than fantasy football.
He might be focused more on a baby and the pandemic. You got to figure out what your priorities are, but we'll see this week for sure.
True. All right. And then the only other game that has two teams above 500 is the Flying Hawaiians versus Retzelmania. So we already talked a little bit about Rag's team. What about insights on Snoots' team?
I watch the games almost every week with Rick, and at 5-4, Snoots is he's put himself in a position to make a move one way or the other here. I don't think that Rick is even super happy with his team overall. I do think that the Flying Hawaiians have a great shot to win this week, especially with a lot of questions. David Johnson isn't necessarily going to play. He's still in concussion protocol. Justin Jackson has been a horrific investment. You never know what you're going to get out of Tyler Lockett, and Lamar Jackson has not been the keeper that Ricky thought he was going to get. So for a team that's been struggling a little bit with a lot of these issues, to be at 5-4, it's a good place to be. I would be shocked if Rag blew this one up and didn't win.
I agree. I think, Dalvin Cook back healthy. Miles Sanders is likely to play, so he'll be back healthy. Plus AJ Brown, Adam Thielen. I mean, Kyler Murray is having a great year. So Rag's team just right now is getting healthier and improved with that trade with Brendan, I think. So I
mean, his team is substantially better than it was the year that he won the championship. Right. There's no question about that. Right now, he's in a much better spot. He's scoring more points, but Lady Luck just is not on his side, and until he woos that lady, we don't know what's going to happen. And I do think that he's in good shape this week. In our division, he's the one team that could certainly make a run here. And he's in great shape to do it. So, I think that this week certainly is.
You've been watching all the games with Snoots at the Brig?
We've been doing a lot of safe Brig watching.
6 feet apart?
Well, no, Snoots and I sit pretty close to each other. But the rest of the group sits far apart. We like to wear our masks.
Good.
Safety first, as Fauci says.
Are you whiskey at the Brig too?
No. I drink about 14 beers
Perfect.
of the PBR genre during the Sunday afternoon. So it's been a great excursion for us, if you will.
Good. I'm happy. That's awesome.
Great.
So any other thoughts on the year so far, or
give me your prediction? Who wins the title this year? What do you think? My prediction is me, but I'm biased, so
I think I might go JK because he's in our division and he'll face more interdivision games. And I think you guys have very like neck and neck teams. So
here's an interesting thing that I think, Banquet at the Ducktown Tavern, we may need to have a conversation about. JK and I don't even play each other this year. So,
yeah.
We're in different divisions. The idea that we wouldn't even play each other and theoretically could be one.
Let's talk about this. I personally think it should be everybody plays each other once, and then you have the remaining games within your division.
You'd miss one division team that you'd play twice. So
right.
It's worth a conversation.
I think that's a better scenario.
Well,
it'll help even it out. I don't know.
This is a conversation for Ducktown Tavern after 16 to 17 woo-woos.
If we want to make the East and West more competitive, this is how you do it.
And I have confidence that Atlantic City is ready to open up as soon as we're ready to sign up.
I don't know if we want to go to Atlantic City during a pandemic. It's already in shambles.
I think they are ready to go.
I can't imagine what that place looks like.
They got sprays. They're running all over the place.
That place is disgusting. All right.
That punching bag is COVID, just riddled with COVID.
Oh yeah, for sure. Cool. Wait, so you think? Do you honestly think yourself?
I think that actually my schedule is a little bit more challenging than some of the other guys' schedules. I do think JK probably has the greatest upside, but it just feels like Al wins games that I'm surprised that he's even in them.
Yep.
And with a game advantage, that is pretty significant. So I do think that the winner comes out of your division. I think our division is too challenging, and there's too many times. Like if I play Brendan, who's 4-4, I don't give myself more than a 55% chance to win that. So I think I'll probably end up with somewhere around 10 or 11. JK has a deep team too, so the depth I think will help him in week 15 to 17.
All right. Well, that'll do it for our halfway show, I think. We'll check in. This was a little more civilized, I think, a little bit more, mature than the years before. But as long as we got the thrusting, we're good.
Absolutely, I'll continue my thrusting.
Nice. All right, we'll do a final show at the end of the year, but that'll do it for the halfway.
Bon voyage.
Later, buddy.